Older UFC fighters have the stigma of being no nonsense, not to be messed with, and ruthless when it comes to street fighting. And while Tito Ortiz is definitely someone who'd mop the floor with almost every human to have ever lived, he does have a reputation of not being the brightest tool in the box.
Is it true you're coming back in the fall though, that the fight will be in the fall?
Yes, it'll be in April.
That said, the former 205-pound champion has been in a lot of street fights. Whether it's other UFC fighters, random radio show hosts, or even the UFC boss himself, Tito isn't one to back down.
I was gonna whoop his ass in front of everybody.
But unlike our other videos where the UFC fighter wins 99.9% of the time, Tito's record on the streets is a bit more mixed. So these are the times Tito Ortiz got into street fights with random people. It's perhaps the most notorious bit of folklore in MMA history. The infamous London Street Brawl featuring Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, Lee Murray, Pat Militek, and many other fighters. It was after UFC 38, the first ever UFC event held in the United Kingdom. Back then, the shows had names, and this one was ironically called Brawl at the Hall. After the event was said and done, many of the fighters present headed to a local bar in central London where all hell broke loose, and one man started the chaos, Lee Murray. Murray was a UFC fighter in the mid-2000s who has spent the past 19 years locked up in a Moroccan prison for pulling off the biggest heist in British history after he and a group stole 53 million pounds.
Lee Murray is one of the most legit gangsters of all time.
In short, Murray's friend misinterpreted some play fighting outside the bar for an actual fight and knocked out a buddy of Tito Ortiz's right in front of his eyes.
What the F are you doing trying to choke my coach? And right when Bo wanted to say something back to him, Paul, Lee Murray's buddy, Paul was the one that was one of the guys in part of the so-called biggest bank heist in world history. Paul out of nowhere, who's a big dude, with a running start, blasted Bo with the right hand and launched him. And the alley blew up into a huge fight.
From there, the street turned into something from a movie. Chuck Liddell was KOing people left, right, and center, regular people were fighting, Pat Militek was fighting anyone in his path, but the main event was Tito versus Lee Murray. Tito, who was apparently many drinks down, charged at Lee Murray, who hadn't been drinking that evening, for knocking out his friend. And despite being the reigning light heavyweight champion, while Murray was just a regional fighter at the time, it couldn't have gone worse for Ortiz.
Tito threw a combo at Lee. Lee ducked out of the way of everything. I don't even think Lee was drinking that night, so it was an unfair fight to begin with because Tito was hammered like I was. But Lee got out of the way of all the punches, threw a 5-punch combo back at Tito. Every punch landed, very hard punches, and Tito went down, landed on his face unconscious. And Lee started to punt him in the head with his steel-toed boots on.
To this day, Ortiz claimed he merely slipped over.
Well, Lee Murray, he's his own problem. He has his own demons in himself. But here's a situation that I came walking out of a bar and one of my buddies getting beat up on, and I was defending him. I defended him, and at the time I had knee surgery. I was dressed in a suit as I am today with slippery bottoms and of my shoes, and he punched one of my friends. I went to go grab him. He ran away from me, and I went to go slide up and catch up to him. He turned around and faced me and hit me with a shot. He dropped me for a second. I came to my feet and I clenched him, and I threw a few knees. Then the police broke us up, and that was it.
But there's many eyewitness accounts, even from friends of Tito, who all confirmed that Lee Murray became the unofficial UFC champion that night. For Tito though, street fighting had been a part of his life from the very beginning, and it didn't matter if he won or lost.
Kids always used to pick on me. They would always talk smack about me, and the only way to do that, it was to fight against them. And you know, I look at it now as it was just a learning experience for me.
Were you winning the fights or losing the fight?
I was winning all of them but one. I think when I was in junior high school, I got hit with a chain in the back, and I don't think I ever cried so hard in my life. and that was, I was in 7th grade.
That mentality was even there just weeks before he fought Wanderlei Silva for the vacant UFC title all the way back in 2000. According to Tito, he had a street fight with 3 dudes he claimed were skinheads and actually ended up in prison. The details are a bit sparse, but here's Tito's side of what happened. Much like the London Street Brawl, it started when one of Tito's friends was in an altercation first.
One of my buddies got punched in the face by some guy, and he came to the bar that I was at and we're playing pool. He's like, these skinheads joined me. I was like, let's go find them. So we went back, and the biggest guy that I seen, he was probably like 6'4", big skinhead guy. He's like,
that's mine.
What are you pussies gonna do? That was the first guy I hit. I hit him, then I hit another guy, and then we fell inside the house, and It was just like a melee. I mean, there was probably about 6 of us, about 15 of them. Knocked out 3 or 4 of the guys.
After that, Tito actually ended up getting arrested, but that wasn't the end of the story. While the criminal system was working out the details, Tito had perhaps the most important fight of his life. He beat Wanderlei and became UFC champion, but still had the law looming over him.
Ended up moving to Vegas for 2 months because I had to get ready for the Wanderlei Silva fight. Won the world title, came back, turned myself in, and did 59 days in jail.
No way.
Yeah.
How did that skirt under the radar?
Just one of those things. I was in 2-man cell for 59 days, and it sucked. And I never wanted to commit a crime ever again. So that's why I never fought on the street ever again.
But before he learned his lesson about not street fighting, Tito has lots of stories, and a lot of them didn't go his way. Just like the time when he was up and coming, the dominant force in the UFC at the time wasn't his biggest fan.
He still is a pussy.
Who?
Tito.
Which Tito?
Tito Ortiz is a pussy mentally.
According to Tank Abbott, he and Tito Ortiz briefly trained together when the UFC was in its infancy. They were both Huntington Beach born and bred, so it makes sense they were in the same circles in those days. And one time during a wrestling session, Tank got the future 205-pound champion in a front headlock, and Tito didn't react well.
I wasn't turning it up at all. I was actually being kind of soft, and he started crying. I had him in a front head and arm. And he goes, "You're trying to break my neck. What are you doing?" Oh my God, like bawling like a little baby.
Despite some doubt from Rampage about the situation, Tank absolutely doubled down on his story.
I don't believe that.
That's an absolute
Come
truth.
on.
There's one thing that I'll take a lie detector test.
But Tito's an accomplished wrestler, right?
Yeah, he's tough, man.
no,
he got a big neck and a big head. How do you put your arm around that big head?
It was a front, he shot on me and I got in a front head and arm and I was squeezing and choking him. And maybe after he went away with John Lober and started taking steroids that made his head grow so big, that he was the pussy that I know him to be.
It turns out Tank Abbott just absolutely hates Tito Ortiz, and it all stems from the time when at a fitness retreat, Ortiz asked Tank to borrow $500. But when Tank told him he didn't have that kind of money spare, Tito reportedly went behind his back and tried to steal it.
Going through my checks, yep, like AT&T, whatever, yep. What? And it's his brother's name. And it just happened to coincide to be the day after he asked me for $500. And it was for $500. That's how bright the guy is.
He ended up bad-mouthing Tito for a good 15 minutes and probably isn't the only person in the UFC to have that level of disdain for the Huntington Beach Bad Boy, because the person who might have hated him the most throughout his career was weirdly enough his own boss, Dana White. So much so that Dana stepped on the scales and weighed in for an actual fight against Tito, but while that didn't happen, the two still ended up trading punches on a private jet of all places. The story between Dana and Tito is a complex one that began in the gritty MMA gyms of Vegas before the UFC even existed. Dana wanted to get into combat sports in some way and became friends with both Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell before they became stars.
We loved Tito at the time. You know, Tito was our guy. Tito was my guy. Frank and Lorenzo loved Tito.
Dana became both their managers and helped them throughout their contract negotiations in the times where the sport was the wild, wild west. After time, Tito joined the UFC, became its 205-pound champion, and perhaps the biggest draw in the entire sport. But then, Dana White bought the UFC, and there was a serious conflict of interest. He was both Tito's manager and the owner of the company.
Tito's just a really dumb human being. He's not intelligent at all. He's very, very fucking stupid. Okay, let's start there. And I mean, look at him speak publicly anytime. Look, Google Tito Ortiz talking, okay? You know, and I don't have any beef with Tito anymore. And Tito, I can tell. You're fucking stupid, Tito. You know you are. So Tito we'd be coming up to a big fight that was on Saturday, right? Deals have been done for months. Tito would call and say, "I'm not going to show up unless you pay me another $150,000 or whatever the number was."
Over time, Ortiz felt that Dana shortchanged him in contract negotiations, favored Chuck Liddell over him, and their relationship deteriorated.
Let me just, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Dana Tito questions. Let me just just get it out there. The stuff between Tito and I is very real. You know, this is no bullshit. We're not trying to, you know, put on a WWE show. It's very real.
That's why there's cops on each side, as you can see. So I don't cave his faces.
Despite the professional words from Dana behind the scenes, he absolutely hated Tito.
That nobody's pissed me off more than Tito Ortiz and the shit that he pulled while he was here.
It then hit a boiling point when Tito Ortiz flat out asked the UFC boss for a boxing match to settle their differences. But with Dana being a boxing fan and someone who wanted to compete in boxing growing up, he actually fancied his chances against Ortiz in a stand-up fight.
So Tito started to feel like his hands were getting in a good place and we hated each other. So he told Lorenzo, the last thing that I want in this deal is I want 3-round boxing match with Dana. 3-3-minute rounds boxing. Lorenzo called me and said, this is what I said. Yes. Tell him, sign the deal.
There was no hesitation on your end, like this is a fucking UFC fighter and I'm signing up to fight him right now?
This wasn't going to be the first time that Tito and I had boxed.
Oh, you had boxed Tito before?
Many times.
So with the knowledge that he used to get the upper hand many years before, Dana agreed and launched himself into training camp. And while many fans thought it was just a bit of a joke, Dana was extremely serious.
Let me make this very clear. If it was an MMA match, Tito would murder me.
Yeah.
Like, it would be fucking...
Definitely.
It would be the most horrific beating you've ever fucking seen in your life. He would double leg me, smash me against the fence.
It'd be like a Habib smash.
And put his fucking no, it'd be worse than that. Tito would literally put his fucking elbows through my skull, okay? Just so we're clear here.
Yeah.
In a boxing match, I was gonna fuck him up and make him look stupid. And he knows that. And that's why that fight didn't happen.
A date was set, a TV deal reached, and this was actually going to happen. Dana even weighed in the day before the fight, but strangely enough, Tito no-showed. He claimed the contract was set up to screw him over, while Dana of course said he was just afraid of losing to the boss.
At that time, any money that was made from that fight, it was a 50-50 cut. And that's what we agreed upon. And then when it came about to sign the contract, he said, no, we're not doing that. So for me, I was like, okay, I'm not doing it then. And then that was a month before the fight was even supposed to happen. And he continued on saying he was training, he was doing this, doing that. And I just was like, don't sit on scale saying Tito's a no-show, he's afraid to fight me. Which is exactly what they did.
After that, sadly, the idea of them fighting fizzled out. But there's a second part to the story, and in this one, they do trade blows for real. The details are pretty sparse, but Dana, his business partners, other UFC staff members, and Tito Ortiz were on a private jet to Japan. Everything was fine, everything was normal, until Tito decided to have a little fun and rough up Dana.
We were playing around, it was wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah, we're drinking all night, so we had to get up in the morning and get on a flight to Japan. We're flying up to Alaska first, and then from Alaska to Japan, and we were playing around. I choked the shit out of him.
Even though they were on the runway, ready to take off, it was one of those situations that went from 0 to 100. And before anyone knew it, it was a full-on fight.
Messing around, and he put me in what's called a neck crank. And I was tapping, and he didn't stop.
So tapping means you gotta let go.
Yeah. And you can seriously hurt somebody in a neck crank, especially as big and strong as Tito is. So I just started blasting him in the ribs, started punching him in the ribs. And when he let go, just jumped up, and it was a full-blown fist fight in the plane. And we were literally taking off. And the plane was going like this, and the Fertitta brothers had to jump in and break up the fight. So then I sat on the front of the plane, he sat in the back of the plane the rest of the flight.
In the end, the UFC staff had to jump in and separate the two before things really got out of hand. And while it didn't answer what would happen if the two had that boxing match, it does let us know how a true fight would go. And speaking of fights, that almost happened. Here's the time Chael Sonnen wished he had a street fight with Tito. When it comes to fighting, Tito Ortiz and Chael Sonnen have never been too far apart. But if we're talking quick-wittedness, trash talk, and mic skills, it's like an amateur versus the master.
Well, he talks well. His mouth has gotten him every fight, big fight that he's had. And every time when it's time to present and perform, he's failed. On Saturday night, it's not gonna change. What I do well, I come in with heart, I come in with determination, I come in with hard work and perseverance. When I get my hand raised, I'll know why. And so all the millions of fans that have had my back over the last 20 years.
Tito always says I'm using my mouth to get my opportunities. The only person I know that made money using their mouth is his ex-wife.
And the two got into a private verbal spat on the streets of Sonnen's Portland, Oregon one evening.
I had just come home from a trip. I was at a Bellator, and I walk outside, and my buddy Joel is gonna pick me up. So I walk out to get in the car, and I'm just standing there minding my own business. There's no one around. I'm just standing there waiting for Joel's car to pull up, and I'm playing on my phone, but nobody's around, and I hear somebody say, "There's the pussy."
Chael explained that weirdly enough, he gets comments like this from fans who are joking, but when he looked up to greet the person, it was anything but a fan.
So I look up from my phone with a smile on my face. I think I'm about to meet somebody. And it's Tito, and wouldn't you know, the coward is with somebody else. So the only time Tito would ever address me like that, one is when I'm locked in a cage with Vandalay and he's on the opposite side, or two is when he's got a buddy with him. So this scumbag, what a scumbag move.
Instead of matching Tito's aggressive energy, Chael asks him a very simple question.
So I look up and I simply say, "Hey Tito, what are you doing in Portland?" I don't say anything else to this day, Gareth, and to this day, he's never responded. He began shaking his head and he began like bumbling his words, and he walked off, and I remember watching him staring out there right on the streets and watching him going, "You know, Tito, that wasn't meant as a trick question. Like, that wasn't meant to stump you. What are you doing in Portland seems like something you could respond to reasonably."
The two never came to blows despite Chael's regrets, but they did end up having an actual MMA fight in Bellator back in 2017, with Tito getting a first-round submission to settle the score. Thanks for watching. Go and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you in the next one.